This video is brought to you by NordVPN. Right now you can get a deep discount on a 2-year plan at nordvpn.com/foolishbaseball. You'll even get an extra month for free when you sign up at my link. On August 25th, 1945, Jackie Robinson and Brooklyn Dodgers GM Branch Rickey had an important conversation. It's a story that's been told many times. 2 months later, the Dodgers announced Robinson would join the minor league Montreal Royals for the 1946 season, putting him on track to break Major League Baseball's color barrier. That Rickey chose Jackie Robinson, of all players, for this noble experiment was a surprise for some. Larry Doby, the first black American leaguer, said Robinson wasn't the best ball player the Negro Leagues had to offer. That honor belonged to Josh Gibson. It's a narrative that has shaped perceptions of Robinson's career since baseball's integration. He wasn't the best player, he just had the best temperament for the job. Unfortunately, both those statements sell him short. Jackie Robinson might just be the greatest athlete in American history. Perhaps the most astonishing fact about Robinson's baseball career is that it featured a 4.5-year hiatus from the game. Between fall 1940 and spring 1945, for him the ages of 21 to 25, he just didn't play baseball. He was an assistant athletic director for the National Youth Administration, a New Deal era government agency. He was drafted to the Army in 1942 following Pearl Harbor, and following his discharge, he became the athletic director at Samuel Houston College, an HBCU in Austin, Texas. During those important developmental years, he didn't face live pitching, he didn't field ground balls, and he didn't run the base paths. All the rhythm and repetition that ball players need, he didn't get any of it. Such a large gap in one's baseball resume isn't typical, but it can happen. Ted Williams missed 3 seasons fighting in World War II and about 2 more fighting in Korea. Jose Rio missed 5 seasons due to elbow troubles, and Josh Hamilton's odyssey to 2010 MVP included a 4-year absence from the game. But those cases are few and far between. It just bears repeating. Between the ages of 21 to 25, Jackie Robinson was not a baseball player. In early 1945, the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro Leagues offered Robinson a contract to play professionally. He accepted and immediately reestablished himself as one of black baseball's brightest stars. In 34 documented games versus top Negro League competition, he batted .375 with a .449 on-base percentage while slugging .600. Just taking a glance at the OPS Plus leaderboards, if Josh Gibson was indeed the best, then Jackie Robinson was getting pretty darn close. The inclusion of future Hall of Famers Roy Campanella and Buck Leonard add legitimacy to this list as well. After his conversation with Branch Rickey, he hopped on board with the Montreal Royals, a minor league affiliate of the Brooklyn Dodgers, for the 1946 season. Now playing against white competition, he continued his domination, leading the International League in batting average and on-base percentage. His debut with the Dodgers was quickly approaching. And with that debut came a level of athleticism that Major League Baseball hadn't yet seen. When Robinson retired in 1956, he finished with 137 homers and 197 stolen bases for the Dodgers. At that point, no other player in National or American League history had reached both those career totals. In just 10 MLB seasons, he put up power speed numbers that pre-integration stars like Tris Speaker and Rogers Hornsby couldn't in 20. The second player to get there was Willie Mays in 1960, and now a whopping 84 players have hit at least 137 home runs and stolen 197 bases, the most recent being Brett Gardner. But before Robinson, it simply didn't happen. His glove also graded out at a high level. Fangraphs rates Robinson as one of the league's top 10 most valuable defenders throughout his career. Among second basemen since integration, he's in the top 3 in all the triple slash stats, including a comfortable lead in on-base percentage. And he's tied in OPS Plus with Joe Morgan, who is considered by many to be the position's finest player of all time. As a rookie, Robinson played a complimentary role on the 1947 Dodgers. He didn't play second base as he had with the Royals, rather first base to accommodate Eddie Stanky, who finished 7th in MVP voting the previous year. Batting second in the lineup, Robinson also laid down a league-leading 28 sacrifice bunts, which is tied for the 8th most by any hitter since 1947. But he was still a sensation, leading the National League in steals and winning Rookie of the Year at the age of 28. Meanwhile, more black ball players began to trickle into the league, although one could argue that MLB wasn't truly integrated until 1959, when Pumpsie Green joined the Red Sox. 1949 marked the beginning of Robinson's baseballing peak, as he led the National League in batting average, steals, and wins above replacement on his way to an MVP campaign. He essentially repeated that performance 2 seasons later in 1951, but finished 6th in MVP voting while teammate and former Negro Leagues standout Roy Campanella won the award. These 2 campaigns are a testament to Robinson's greatness. He's one of 5 second basemen with multiple 9-WAR seasons, and only one of 2 to do so since 1947, with the other of course being Joe Morgan. In fact, for a 5-year stretch comprised of his age 30 to age 34 seasons, he was the most valuable player in MLB according to Baseball Reference WAR, just edging out Stan Musial. The same man who didn't play baseball for 5 years was now its most valuable hitter across 5 seasons. After another strong campaign in 1954, Robinson started to slow down. He struggled with, among other things, large fluctuations in weight throughout his playing career. Still, with his help, the Dodgers finally defeated the Yankees in the 1955 World Series, meaning Robinson had now won everything there was to win in the sport. In his final season, Robinson still put up the 6th most WAR of any batter in their curtain call in MLB history. Sadly, the diabetes that contributed to his early death at age 53 was already causing complications. Indeed, not only did Robinson's MLB career start late because of the color barrier, it ended early because of a sharp decline in health. Yet, those 10 seasons were all he needed. The league was integrated, the civil rights movement was kicking into gear, and in the middle of it all was Jackie Robinson, the most underrated player in baseball history. It's quite the claim to suggest that Jackie Robinson, an American icon, is somehow underrated as a baseball player, but he's ultimately not remembered for statistical production on the diamond. Nowadays, modern analytics show just how special Robinson was. After all, he was elite at both getting on base and playing an up-the-middle position. For his career, Robinson is 15th in MLB history among all hitters in wins above replacement per 150 games played. And as dominant as everyone on this list is, think about the names that aren't here. No Stan the Man, no Hank Aaron, no Mike Schmidt, no A-Rod. From the ages of 30 to 34, which constituted Robinson's absolute peak, only 4 players, Mays, Wagner, Ruth, and Gehrig, accrued more WAR. Those 5 seasons in your early 30s are a crucial portion of any Hall of Fame career, and Robinson is the 5th most valuable hitter in MLB history during them. Consult a top 100 of all time list, and it'll tell you Robinson was maybe the 40th best player in history. With all the incentives in the world for a big corporation to virtue signal, the man who broke baseball's color barrier landed 38th on ESPN's recent filing. But a more holistic review of his career and life proves Robinson to be far better than that. Nobody else here missed 4 consecutive baseball seasons. Among players with at least 150 stolen bases and plus 50 fielding runs since integration, only Barry Bonds has a better on-base percentage. Among players with at least 100 home runs since integration, only Ted Williams has a better strikeout-to-walk ratio. Jackie Robinson could do everything, and he did so in the face of appalling, violent racism. Some are taught to believe that suffering is virtuous, that it makes people stronger, but for most, it's a great burden. How much better would Jackie Robinson have been if Larry Doby, Roy Campanella, or Monty Irvin went first instead, just to take the heat off a little bit? How much better would Jackie Robinson have been if he never had a racial epithet hurled at him, never had a death threat sent his way, or never had to sleep in a hotel separate from his white teammates in the Jim Crow South? It was traumatic to be Jackie Robinson. No wonder he died so young. And now, Even 50 years after his passing, his story is venerated but still not quite fully understood by most baseball fans. Let's talk about the real Jackie Robinson. There's two myths to dispel here. Myth number one, he wasn't the best, which is a harmless statement in a vacuum when you consider other Negro League stars like Josh Gibson, but continually emphasizing it suggests that Robinson was just good rather than an all-time great. So there's nothing wrong with Larry Doby's quote, which is far more pro-Gibson than it is anti-Robinson, but it's also helpful to keep in mind that Doby didn't see Robinson play in the Negro Leagues. He was stationed in the Pacific in 1945 while Robinson played for the Monarchs. Jackie Robinson was never shipped off to fight in the war, which relates to the second myth, his temperament. During the famous conversation with Branch Rickey, the Dodgers GM was supposedly looking for a ball player with enough guts to not fight back against the hate they'd receive. And while Robinson did adopt a pacifist approach during his playing career, it was not his natural state of being. Following Pearl Harbor, Robinson was drafted into the Army. On July 6, 1944, just 13 months before his conversation with Branch Rickey, Robinson boarded an Army bus at Fort Hood in Texas. The bus driver looked at Lieutenant Robinson and told him to go to the back of the bus. Robinson refused, as was his right. The War Department had desegregated military buses just a month prior. When it reached the end of the line, Robinson was taken into custody by military police and eventually court-martialed. The legal proceedings kept him from the war, while his 761st Tank Battalion, the first black tank unit to see combat in World War II, landed in France via Omaha Beach. Robinson remained in the United States for his trial. He was acquitted and honorably discharged in November 1944, allowing him to play for the Monarchs the following year. This is all to say that Jackie Robinson, at his core, was not Mr. Turn the Other Cheek. He wouldn't tolerate intolerance. With those myths out of the way, there's still one more remarkable aspect of Robinson yet to be explored. He was a multi-sport athlete at UCLA, where he lettered in baseball, basketball, football, and track. In basketball, he led what is now the Pac-12 in scoring with 12.4 points per game and was named conference MVP. In football, he played for an undefeated UCLA team in a backfield featuring Kenny Washington and Woody Strode, who would later help integrate the NFL by signing with the Rams in 1946. In track and field, he was a national champion long jumper and would have certainly been a medal contender in the 1940 Olympics had they not been canceled due to the Second World War. Robinson's older brother, Mac, finished second in the 200 meters at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. The gold medalist in that race? Jesse Owens. But in his only baseball season at UCLA, Jackie Robinson hit .097. Of the four sports he played for the Bruins, baseball was by far his worst. Yet, after a 4-season hiatus from his worst college sport, he broke Major League Baseball's color barrier and dominated for a decade. That's why he's the greatest. America has produced plenty of iconic athletes, but none of them have a story quite like Jackie Robinson's. You know, Major League Baseball is going to be back soon, and NordVPN has the solution to all your MLB TV local blackout woes. Let's say you're a Dodgers fan in Los Angeles. Simply choose a server in New York, and you can watch the home team. In fact, their virtual private network has 5,400 servers in 59 countries, so why not use Nord to expand your other streaming capabilities? Field of Dreams is on Amazon Prime in Japan, and Trouble with the Curve is on HBO Max in Mexico, but NordVPN lets you surf the web without borders at the push of a button. It also lets you surf securely behind a wall of next-gen encryption, and you can connect up to 6 devices on one NordVPN account, whether it be your laptop, tablet, streaming device, or phone. If any of that sounds good, you can get a deep discount at nordvpn.com/foolishbaseball. Not only will you get a free bonus month on a 2-year deal, it's also risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's nordvpn.com/foolishbaseball.